Hi, welcome to another video on heart rate. For this video, we'll be looking at the Karvonen method. And this method would be found in Module 2, Lesson 3. You do have an example at the bottom of the page, and if you'd like to pull that up, we will be working that one out as well. But there's some important parts on this formula, and what we want to do is start with the maximum heart rate, which is explained in your lesson. To get your maximum heart rate is you take 220 minus your age. From that point, we want to look at the resting heart rate. And individually, we don't know our resting heart rate unless we take it. So going through the directions in your lesson, you'd want to do your resting heart rate so you could have an accurate formula that would match your aerobic abilities. Using those two numbers, we have the maximum and the resting. So we'll have 220 minus our age, and then we'll have a number for our resting heart rate. Now we can find out our heart rate reserve, which is our maximum heart rate minus our resting heart rate. Now this number that we get for our heart rate reserve will be our working number. So we can stop right there for a moment and understand that that part of the formula is done. And that's all we need for that part of the formula. We don't have to revisit it again except for the resting heart rate or heart rate reserve. The next step would be to figure out your target heart rate. The Karvonen formula works in percentages. So usually what we do is we figure out at 60% all the way through 90%. So you can work 60% to 85%, or you can even do numbers like 70 to 80% or 75 to 80% to really narrow down where you want to be as far as your heart rate. But a key to this, a key variable, is your resting heart rate. So you need to make sure you figure that out before you try to do this. So back to our formula. Again, we have our heart rate reserve, whatever number that is. So now we will take our heart rate reserve and we get to multiply it by the percentages we choose. And for this, we're just going to stick with 60 and 90%. So the first thing I do is multiply by 60%. Remember, 60% converts to 0.6. Okay, 0.60. It's 60% of a whole number. We will get a number that we don't have a label for, so we'll just put a number sign. And then we are going to add back in, this is so important, our resting heart rate. And then we will get our target heart rate at 60%. So this is our final number for 60%. Now, we're not done yet. We have one more step, but it's not difficult. We're going to take our heart rate reserve again. We're going to multiply by 90%. Again, this could be 70%, 75, 77, 80%, 84%, whatever you want it to be. Again, I wouldn't go below 60 and I wouldn't go above 90. Again, you're going to get a number. And again, we're going to add our resting heart rate back in. And then we will finish up with our target heart rate at 90%. Now we have a range to find where we want to fall when we exercise. Where do we want to be? Do we want to keep it in that range? Do we want to be at 60% for 10 minutes, 90% for 2 minutes? An interval type training? So that's what this formula is great for. Okay, now you've seen the acronyms in work. So now we're going to go to the example that we have in our lesson. So in this example, we have a person who is 50 years old, and their resting heart rate, vital that we know this, is 72 beats per minute. Our first step, remember, we want to find out our maximum heart rate. That equals 220 minus my age, which in this case is 50. I get 170. Our next step is our resting heart rate. which we have. It is 72. Now we can go to the next step of finding the heart rate reserve, which is my maximum heart rate, 170, minus my resting heart rate, which is 72, which gives me a number of 98. So now I have my heart rate reserve of 98. That is the number I can work from now on. Remember, we are looking at this for 60% to 90%. So now I can take the number 98, which is my heart rate reserve, and I can multiply by 60%, and I will get a number that ends up in a decimal. Just leave the decimal for now. Add back in, if you remember, my resting heart rate, which is 72, and then I get 130.8, which I'm going to round that up to 131. So remember, that's half of it. Now that's my target heart rate at 60%. Now I can go to the next one at 90%. Multiply it, I get 78.4. Don't forget, I got to add back in my resting heart rate, which was 72. That's how important this number is. And now I get 150.4, which now that equals 150. So this person who's 50 years old, her resting heart is 72, knows at the low end of their exercise for aerobic function, they should be at 131 beats per minute. But it can range up to 150 beats per minute, but they know at this level they are 90%. This level they are 60%. And if we go back to the Phil Maffetone article about burning fat, we want to be at a low level of aerobic to increase our aerobic function. So taking this information, if I want to relate it to the MAF heart rate, which would be, if you remember, 180 minus age, and this person is 50, I get 130 beats per minute. Look at how this relates. Will it always match like this? It should be pretty close, but it's going to give you a nice level of maximum aerobic function. We're using the Karvonen to increase to our anaerobic threshold to work at a safe level. If you have any questions about the formula, please reach out. I encourage you to do one with your age, your resting heart rate, and practice on it, because you will be turning that in as a project.